Good people, FantasyHolics everywhere. Welcome to the FantasyHolics podcast, where we bring you skills, strategy, and knowledge for you to dominate your fantasy leagues. We got a special show lined up for you tonight. We're going to do draft recap and give you some fantasy impact with some players that you might be looking to add to your team for the upcoming 2021 fantasy football season. Tonight, I'm your host, Mose. I got my guys here from FantasyHolics. We're going to break down the NFC conference. We got the Western Division, the Eastern Division. We got the North. We got the South. We're going to break it all down for you tonight. Fellas, what's going on? How's everybody doing tonight?
What's up? How you doing?
Mose?
Not much, man. I'm just glad to be on with you guys to get ready to break this down. So we're going to start with some brief introductions. Just, tell everybody who you are. Tell everybody what you do for FantasyHolics. If you want to give some highlights of, your fantasy football accolades, you can do that as well. We'll start at the top, Mr. 305. Let them know what's up, man.
Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm Mr. 305. I've been at FantasyHolics for a couple months now. I do a lot of dynasty stuff, a couple IDP articles here and there. As far as my fantasy experience, my resume, I'm relatively new to fantasy. It's only been a few years. I'm still young, but I do have a couple championships.
My internet's right now. Gosh.
But yeah, I'm doing the NFC North tonight, so I'm excited to break it down for you guys.
Cool. Grimlock Warrior, hopefully your internet can get you through this, man. We understand technical difficulties, but if you can, just give a brief introduction of yourself tonight.
Yeah, it's gosh,
can't get you through it. Yeah, we might have to see if he can. Can you get through it? No, I think he's having some issues.
Yeah, I think he's toast.
We may have to drop him down and then see if he can restart and come back. Castle Black, let him know what's up, man. Introduce yourself to the people.
What's up, man? It's your boy Castle Black. I think I'm legitimately the longest running admin on FantasyHolics. We've been called a few things over the years, good things and bad things, I guess. I'm an old head, man. I've been playing fantasy for a long time. In the last couple years, I've gotten real heavily into Dynasty. Keeps me busy in the off season. So this season, especially, I've probably spent more time looking at the rookies, scouting the rookies, paying more attention to my Dynasty leagues than ever. But I just love it, man. I've been playing fantasy for 18, 19 years, something like that, and won a bunch of championships. Getting involved with these guys on this page is maybe nothing but better because every league we play in, I know I'm dealing with nothing but sharks. So bring your A game to play with these fools.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see if we can get Grimlock Warrior back in here. But if not, I guess we can get started. Mr. 305, you said you had the North. That's where I wanted to start, the NFC North. Let me know what team you want to start with first. Before we get to that, give me 1 second. Give us a follow. Follow FantasyHolics. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, and you can find us on Twitter. You see the guys here. We have a huge team behind us. We're posting articles daily. We're posting, Q&As and surveys and trying to interact as much as possible, getting ready for the upcoming 2021 season. So give us a follow on all of those social medias. Okay, Mr. 305, what team did you want to start with in the North?
We're going to start with the Vikings.
All right. We're going to start with the NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings. You give us a quick draft recap and give us some fantasy impact that you can see with these incoming rookies.
Yeah, so the Vikings, I think they had a pretty good draft. I gave them a B+. They went out and got a backup quarterback for Kirk Cousins. They got a couple offensive weapons and Iowa State running back Kene Nwangwu. I really like the backup tight end they got from Central Missouri, Zach Davidson. I think he has a lot of potential there. They helped out the O-line, which should help out Dalvin Cook this season, should help out Kirk Cousins. And obviously, when Kirk Cousins has more time to throw, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith are all in for a bigger season for fantasy as well. As far as year one contributors from this rookie class, I don't really think the Vikings will have too much to play with. But as far as dynasty, which is what I really look for, I think Kellen Mond offers some pretty good value. You can be getting him later in your rookie drafts, maybe rounds 3 or 4. And I mean, Kirk Cousins, they're paying him a lot of money. And I think he has 2 years left on his contract. So I don't think Kellen Mond will be taking over anytime soon. But hey, you're in your 4th round. You ain't got a lot of players to choose from. Take a chance on Kellen Mond. And as far as another player that I would take a chance on late, Zach Davidson, the tight end, like I said, he has really good athletic profile. He produced a good amount at Central Missouri. And I know Irv Smith is there. He's young. He's going to be the target share. But if anything happens to Irv Smith, injury goes down, Zach Davidson, they could start working in more 2 tight end sets with him as well. But overall, I think the rookie class won't do too much this year, but there are a couple interesting pieces for years to come.
Now, I think it's interesting that you bring up the tight end because while the Vikings did not bring back Kyle Rudolph, there are rumblings that, Irv Smith, since he's been drafted, has been a bit inconsistent. And while he is young and he does offer some athletic skill traits that you like to see from that tight end position, he's really going to have to take a leap forward this year and step up and earn it. So with that young rookie tight end, do you see him really making a push for, if not starter snaps, to get quality, second string snaps, being used in, 2 tight end sets more often than normal because he can offer maybe a little bit more in as far as a receiving threat to that Vikings offense than Irv Smith does?
So I don't think he'll have much opportunity this year. I think towards the end of the year, you could start seeing him get more snaps. They do have Tyler Conklin, who's their tight end 2 right now, which I think he's not good, but he's a decent backup tight end who's a good blocking tight end who gets a lot of snaps. Zach Davidson, though, he ran a 4.58. He's not super athletic, so I don't see him pushing for starter snaps this year, but I do like his potential to maybe grow into something maybe 2 or 3 years down the line.
Cool. Now, I wanted to go next to the south. I was going to do a north, south, east, west. I believe Grimlock Warrior had the south. And I'm judging by the Eagles banner in the background, Mr. Castle Black. I'm going to assume that you have the NFC East. So would you like to start with your Eagles, or would you like to start with another team in the East Division?
I think the Eagles are probably the most exciting to talk about, so I'll save them for last.
Okay,
that's not just me being a fanboy. That's just who their number 1 pick was. But I'll start with probably the least exciting for fantasy, and that would be the Dallas Cowboys. My hated Dallas Cowboys. They actually did it right. I gave them the best grade for real life football in this entire division. If you look at their offense last year, especially before Dak got hurt, you don't really need to add much. I mean, they could use maybe another piece on O-line, but they were just in shootout after shootout after shootout, getting blown out on defense. So I give it to Jerry, man. He displayed some patience, and he went out there and he just scooped up a bunch of good defenders. The 1st round pick, Micah Parsons, considered the best linebacker, arguably the best defensive player in this draft. And the only thing I can really say about him that people don't already know or maybe haven't just heard by watching TV is as a local Philly guy, I listen to Sports Talk Radio here, and John Ritchie, former Eagles fullback, is on the midday show on our local sports radio, and he had a chance to coach Micah Parsons his senior year of high school, and he has nothing but bad things to say about him. He said the dude's a diva. He doesn't want to learn. He said he's one of the hardest to coach kids that he ever had to deal with, and furthermore, he was hyped that the Eagles didn't take him, because there was rumor that they might grab him being in that range at the 12th pick. So who knows? That's just one guy's opinion. I mean, watch his tape. Dude's a gamer. He's a fantastic linebacker, so he might end up being great. But that's just a little background that I got from listening to my boy John Ritchie on the radio. But outside of that, they scooped up Kelvin Joseph, the corner. Osa, not even going to butcher that last name, defensive tackle. Another D end and Chauncey Golston, another corner, and Nashawn Wright. So, I mean, they literally just went ham on defense. So I gave them a B plus. I think they did exactly what they needed to do in the draft. I mean, they got Gallup, they got Lamb, they got Cooper, they got Zeke. Pollard flashed. I mean, we all see what Dak can do, especially for fantasy. Like, they didn't have to take off, so they did it smart. B plus for them Cowboys, as much as it pains me to say that.
the defensive tackle, his last name is Odigizua. Osa Odigizua.
You're a better man than I, Mose. I wasn't even going to try.
Oh man. So yeah, I agree with you. I actually just released draft grades for the NFC East today over on my YouTube channel. And I also gave them a B plus as well. I think Jerry Jones did it right. I think he kind of took a step back and let the scouting department and the coaching staff really handle this draft. Offensively, we know they didn't have any weaknesses. I mean, if they did focus on offense, I think it should have been on the offensive line, which they did. The only 2 draft picks that weren't defense were focused on the offensive line. And then the rest of the picks were focused on defense. Now, from your experience, and when we talk about fantasy, obviously defenses don't play that big of a role on a fantasy roster, but sometimes you get a great defensive performance and you can get 15, 20, 25 points from a defense if you think of, them, shutting a team out or causing a lot of turnovers. I know a lot of these guys are rookies and all of them are not going to start and contribute at a high level day one. But what do you think going forward, this draft does for the Dallas Cowboys defense as it pertains to their fantasy value?
I don't think it puts them into a category where you would do anything but stream their team defense against a bad offense. I do think it certainly improves their defense, and the fantasy impact I really see from the jump would be that it's the slight bump probably for Zeke, because if they can keep games closer, we know they like to ground and pound. I don't think Zeke really lost it. I think that was kind of a whirlwind of odd stuff that happened last year. I'm not sweating Zeke or thinking he's washed up, but I think they will run a little bit more if they can stay in closer games. And that in return will hinder a little bit of the passing work for Prescott, for Cooper, Lamb. The dynasty buzz on Lamb at this point is outrageous. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to trade for CeeDee Lamb in a dynasty league right now. You think you're trading for like a 22-year-old Randy Moss, man. It's crazy. To me, I don't see it. You still got Cooper there. He's got a $100 million contract. I mean, Lamb was certainly impressive. I have him on a dynasty team. I'm glad I have him, but I think you should pump the brakes a little bit for the Cowboys offense, especially if some of these young players can step up and, make him in some closer games this season.
Absolutely. All right, let's keep this moving. We don't have the South. I think what I'll do is if we can't get Grimlock back, I think once we finish our round robin, I'll just pull up that South division and maybe give some fantasy players in the draft that we might want to look forward to. But heading over to the NFC West, I'm going to start with the Seattle Seahawks. This is the pain in my behind for me in my division. Can't stand these dudes. Thankfully, they traded a lot of their draft capital for Jamal Adams, who we all know has a problem staying healthy and staying on the field. So cool. You can't have, that draft capital to draft, younger talent and improve your team and find guys that you can build, for the long term. So they only had 3 picks, Dwayne Estrich in the 2nd round, Trey Brown in the 4th, and Stone Forsythe, offensive tackle, in the 6th round. Not a fan of this draft at all. I gave them a C grade, I believe. Obviously, the only fantasy implication is Dwayne Estrich. Now, really, how many targets do you see him getting? I don't see many. When you on a team that has the human Batman suit flying around and DK Metcalf, and you have Tyler Lockett, if you have these guys as your 1 and 2, obviously Dwayne Estrich, he figures to be a slot receiver in this offense. He definitely has some speed. He can definitely take the top off the defense. But with the way Seattle likes to run the ball a lot, I don't see him getting many targets. I think he can produce similarly to a David Moore, who was with the Seahawks last year, where he'll get about 30 to 40 targets this season. Not that many yards, not that many touchdowns. So I don't know if you want to target Dwayne Estrich's high in your rookie drafts. I think he's a late round pick, and he can be used in the event that, someone is injured or on a bye, but not somebody that you want to put in the plans as being somebody featured heavily in your offense. All right, Mr. 305, back to you. Where you want to head next, man?
We're going up there, Wisconsin. Let's go to the Cheeseheads.
Uh-oh. The saga in Wisconsin. Will Aaron Rodgers be the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers for the 2021 season? We don't know yet.
That is a question none of us know the answer to. But for the sake of this argument, we'll say Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. He is tied down there. I personally think he'll be staying, but, will he end up in Denver? I don't know. If he does, I think Denver's a Super Bowl contender. But that's just my take. But let's look at the Packers draft here. They went out in the first round, got the corner, Eric Stokes. A lot of people were wanting, let's get a wide receiver. They didn't get one until the third round in Amari Rogers, who I really like. They drafted 3 offensive linemen to help out Aaron Rodgers there. Overall, they went really no skill position. They had one linebacker. They drafted Isaiah McDuffie in the 6th round from Boston College, who I like as an IDP guy. I don't think he'll be I don't think he'll develop into anything special. But as far as fantasy implication goes, 3rd round, pick 22, Clemson wide receiver Amari Rogers. He is a good slot guy. He has great size. I think he gets a lot of starting slot snaps starting year 1, and it's someone I would target late 2nd round in rookie drafts. I think if Aaron Rodgers stays, there's Devonta Adams, but who else is there? I mean, they have Valdez-Scantling, they have Allen Lazard, but I think Amari Rogers is a superior athlete to those. And I think if he's able to run those shorter routes underneath, I know Robert Tunyon's there, but I think Amari Rogers has a legit chance to be the second go-to guy in the offense. They also went out in the 7th round and got the Mississippi State running back Kylan Hill. He's someone I didn't really like before the draft. I mean, he's average athlete. He produced okay at Mississippi State, but he's not someone who I would even target in drafts. I don't think he really has any upside. And they already have Aaron Jones, who they just re-signed on that big contract. And they also have A.J. Dillon, who I think is a beast. I'm actually surprised they re-signed Aaron Jones. I thought they were going to give the ball A.J. Dillon and let him run with it, but other than that, though, I gave him an overall grade of a B- on that draft. I know a lot of people were saying C+. I can see that, but for me, I think they did all right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with Amari Rogers. I kind of, compared what he might be able to do similarly to what Randall Cobb was able to do in that offense. I think Aaron Rodgers, he's still an elite level cornerback, but you saw how he was able to pick apart defenses when he had his guys on the outside, but he can also manipulate coverages with that man underneath, with that slot receiver. And I think Amari Rogers' ability kind of mimics what Randall Cobb was able to give you. So I think you can definitely see him in that Randall Cobb mode with, Devontae Adams drawing most of the coverage. Like you mentioned, Valdez-Scantling, Allen Lazard, Robert Tunyon, those are your big body guys on 3rd downs when you need to move the chains. But when you want to get creative, when you want to create mismatches, misdirection, things of that nature, I think Amari Rogers is going to factor huge in that offense. So while, they could have attacked a wide receiver earlier, I think there's a plan for Amari Rogers, and he ended up in a really good spot for his skill set and what he does. All right, Castle Black, back to you. Where we want to go in the NFC East.
All right, so we did the least exciting for your fantasy team. So I guess we'll go to the next least exciting, which would be the Washington football team. Sorry, I almost made a faux pas there. The Washington football team. They went with Jamin Davis, the linebacker, at 19 overall in the 1st round, and the reports on him are glowing. His tape is phenomenal. He's all over the field. I think they made a really solid pick there. If they didn't trade up to get a quarterback, that was the only real logical thing I saw them making a move for. So, they stayed where they were at. They didn't waste any draft capital trading up or trading around. They got arguably the best linebacker in the class, especially if, my boy John Ritchie's right about Parsons and he's a diva and, causes headaches. Davis might be the best linebacker in the class. So the next guy they drafted, and the only one that's really going to have much fantasy impact, is Diami Brown. I'm not sure. Sorry if I butchered that, but receiver out of North Carolina. He's a little bit bigger than the average wide receiver in this class. It's a very small class in general. A lot of shorter guys, a lot of skinny guys. Brown's listed as 6'1", almost 200 at this point, which makes him one of the bigger guys in this class. Impact-wise, you're not going to see much year one, barring injury. They got Terry McLaurin, who I love, clear number one there. They've got Logan Thomas catching passes. He showed up last year. He could only most likely is going to just continue to improve. You got Curtis Samuel, who they signed in the offseason, who's, that gadget type of player, but he is, first and foremost a wide receiver. So Brown's not going to see much of the field or have much fantasy impact. At least I don't think so. But for where you can get him in rookie drafts, he's a third rounder, late third rounder sometimes, depending on how your league goes or if you have IDPs in your dynasty league. He's absolutely worth a grab where he's going right now. So outside of that, they took the tight end John Bates at 124. Again, he's going to be behind Thomas. He's more project. You took the tackle Sam Cosmi out of Texas at 51 overall in the second round. That's nothing but helpful for the entire offense, the ground game, the passing game. So that was a smart move. I gave them a C overall. I didn't think it was anything flashy, but I think they did well. I think they did better than the Giants did. But, nothing too exciting to talk about fantasy-wise, but I think that offense is real promising for fantasy. I'd love to get me plenty of shares of McLaurin, Gibson, Samuel, Fitzmagic. In your quarterback leagues, I think he's going to be a fantasy treasure as he usually is whenever he's on the field.
Absolutely. We have a comment here from Travis Sumter. He says, Diami, you mean Dynamic Brown?
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
He's saying he is dynamic. So piggybacking off of Travis here calling Diami Brown dynamic. You mentioned Terry McLaurin. You mentioned Curtis Samuel. What does that do? And you mentioned Ryan Fitzmagic. What does that do for his fantasy draft value? Because he always seems, to find these teams that, have weapons. He's a wily veteran. He's seen it all. He's done it all. And he always seems, to get you 2 or 3 games where he is Fitzmagic. And, you have him sitting on your bench and your starter lays an egg and you're looking down at your reserves and you see a 32-point performance from Ryan Fitzmagic. So, kind of speak to that, especially with your experience in fantasy leagues, kind of speak to that, the headache that is Ryan Fitzpatrick and, him being so up and down and what that does for his value being on a team with so many weapons.
Man, there's so much promise and there is so much excitement and buzz around Fitzmagic right now. And it's hard to deny it because we've all seen what he can do. The dude just loves playing football. Like, even if he has a bad game, he's out there just smiling, running hard on every play. He'll take a hit. That press conference he did where he threw on all Deshaun Jackson's gear and shades and did the interview. I love the guy. How can't you love Ryan Fitzpatrick? Like, the problem with him is he always shines when you don't need him to or when you least expect him to. And then when you hype him up and you put him in your starting lineup is when he burns you or gets benched or whatnot. But I do think this year seems to be a little bit different. There's really no competition there. I think they're just going to let him air it out. Let these offensive guys really do their thing. I got nothing but arrows up for most of the Washington offense this year as long as he's in there. As far as he goes, I'm not banking on him as my starter, but I will absolutely throw him on my bench. And if, the Fitzmagic keeps up for more than a week or two and this offense really starts rolling, you might, have yourself a league winner there that cost you next to nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's keep this thing moving back to the West Coast. And we're going to go with the Los Angeles Rams. Let's be. I don't like what they did. I really don't like what they did. They also did not have a first round pick. They traded that away for Jalen Ramsey, which, listen, I'm a Jalen Ramsey fan. Loved him since high school. Been following him since then. Loved him at Florida State. Wanted my 49ers to trade up and get him. We obviously didn't do it. He went to Jacksonville, and I'm like, okay, he's far enough away from us where I don't have to worry about it. And then the Rams, in typical Ram fashion, do what they do, and they trade for him. And now I have to deal with him twice a year. So that's a pain. But the Rams had a lot of picks. I won't go over too many of them. I think the biggest as far as fantasy impact would be their first pick in the second round, which is wide receiver Tutu Atwell. After that, they focused on defense, primarily grabbing Ernest Jones, linebacker out of South Carolina, Bobby Brown, the third defensive tackle out of Texas A&M, Robert Rochelle, corner out of Central Arkansas. And then they have a couple other players, Jake Funk, running back from Maryland, and Ben Skoranek, wide receiver from Notre Dame in the 7th round. All in all, I believe I gave this draft a C. I don't think they did anything to make their team better. I don't see any real contributors outside of Tutu Atwell, maybe Bobby Brown on that defensive line to get a rotation. I've seen it, with my own team, the 49ers, where the defense operates on such a high level when that front four has a solid rotation and you can keep those big guys fresh throughout the game. You see it with the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a great defensive line rotation. They made the 49ers offensive line look silly last year. Hopefully they don't do it again week 2. You going to that game?
I don't think I'm going to go to that game. My birthday is October 11th, and I'm lucky enough that my aunt and uncle are both season ticket holders. Eagles tickets are impossible to get. You just can't buy them unless you overpay. So they always put me up with a pair of tickets for a game somewhere around my birthday. So I won't be going to week 2, but I'll be at one of those games in that general area.
Okay. All right. I'm probably going to head out to that game during week 2 to see that one. So hopefully they don't do that again. But like I said, defensive line with a good rotation. So I can see Bobby Brown offering some contributing snaps. As far as fantasy implications, I don't see Tutu Atwell doing too much just because he has so many guys in front of him. They have Robert Woods. They have what's his name?
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, there he is, Cooper Kupp. And then they signed Deshaun Jackson. So he has 3 solid wide receivers in front of him. Again, he's like you mentioned, this class is short guys, skinny guys, offer you some speed. So I think he adds value in the special teams game, but in most fantasy leagues, that special teams value isn't enough for you to draft them high in rookie drafts. So I would stay away from Tutu Atwell early in the rookie drafts. You may be able to get him later. If Deshaun Jackson isn't able to stay healthy, Cooper Kupp has had some injury history recently that could push him up in the depth chart. But then, there's the caveat of Sean McVay's offense being one of the more difficult offenses to learn. So can Tutu Atwell acclimate to his system quickly enough to be a contributing asset in the event that Deshaun Jackson or Cooper Kupp go down? So that's also, another question.
You got Van Jefferson's there too still, right? That's what, 2nd round pick last year. So, I mean, he's buried. But, he's fast. He's real fast. One of the fastest dudes in the class, Atwell. Yeah,
definitely. So unless McVay is trying to go 5 wide,
right,
and just run 5 wide all day and spread the defense out, which I don't think he's going to do too much. I don't think you'll see a lot from Tutu Atwell here.
I will, real quick. I will throw in a deep sleeper who on the Rams, Jacob Harris, wide receiver from UCF.
Okay.
He's drafted in the 4th round. Not a lot of people are talking about him. He's 6th on the depth chart, I believe, right now. But he's 6'5", 220, runs a 4.39, has a 40-inch vertical. He produced in college. I think he's someone who has a lot of upside. And if you're looking in the 5th round of your rookie drafts, there's no one. I think Jacob Harris is probably one of your best bets just because of his size and what he brings to the table. I mean, 6'5", runs a 4.4. I mean, that's, I don't want to compare him, but that's like Megatron status.
Yeah, that he very well could be an option. And I think they lost Gerald Everett, tight end. I think he's in Seattle now.
He is.
So I don't know who they have, as a tight end. So not saying that, Jacob Harris is going to be a tight end or fill in that tight end void, but with a bigger body, 6'4", 6'5", 220, you can kind of see him being used in a similar fashion to a Gerald Everett. He's going to factor very highly in the red zone. If Matthew Stafford, obviously he's used to, you mentioned Megatron, Matthew Stafford is used to throwing those, those one-on-one jump balls in the end zone when you're in that red zone that, 20, 15 yards and in, you bring in a guy like Jacob Harris in those situations, let Stafford throw it up and put it in a position where only Jacob Harris can get it. 6'4", 6'5" with a 40-inch vertical, that could figure well in the red zone. So like you said, he could be a solid late round pick.
Definitely.
All right, back to the north. Where you want to head? 305.
We're going to the talk of the draft. We're going Chicago Bears.
All right, let's do it.
So the Bears went out, got themselves a quarterback. Is it the right one though? We won't know. But Justin Fields, obviously Ohio State quarterback, probably the most controversial quarterback that was selected day one. Was he going to go to San Francisco? He ended up falling. The Bears went up and got him. And I like Justin Fields. I don't think he's the franchise quarterback, though. Everything that they're saying now, Matt Nagy's saying they're starting Andy Dalton week 1 this year. But we've heard that before. They start the veteran quarterback, and then by week 5, they're like, oh, he's not good. We need to start the rookie. So I think Justin Fields sees the field this year, no pun intended, at least halfway through the season. If you look at who else they drafted this year, they went out in the second round, got a tackle out of Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins, who I like. They didn't have a pick until the 5th round after that, so they added another tackle out of Missouri, a corner from Oregon, and then the 2 offensive guys they added late was the running back out of Virginia Tech, Khalil Herbert, and the wide receiver from North Carolina, Daz Newsome. As far as their fantasy implications this year, obviously Khalil Herbert's going to be the 3rd running back. David Montgomery picked it up late in the season last year. He's going to get all of the 1st and 2nd down carries. Tariq Cohen's coming back from injury. We'll see how he does. I think if you look at what he did before he was injured, he's obviously the pass catching running back. He's very dynamic. I don't think Khalil Herbert sees a lot of playing time this year, but he is someone I like in terms of being a consistent backup to where if an injury happens to David Montgomery, I would look at picking him up off the waiver wire. And Daz Newsome, I would avoid Daz Newsome. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the situation in Chicago, there's not a lot of bodies in front of him. He's just not someone I see as hitting that upside. I don't think he has a lot of upside. I think he can maybe come in maybe a year or 2, have a good season as a wide receiver, 2 or 3 in Chicago, not for your fantasy team. But he's not someone I'm going to be targeting as a high upside guy. But, overall, the Chicago Bears, I gave them an A. I think if Justin Fields works out, that's obviously a win because they've been desperate for a quarterback. They have the defense. They have Allen Robinson. I really like Cole Kmet. They got the running backs. They just need that quarterback who can kind of push that offense over the top.
Now, this is the one thing that kind of, and I don't want to linger on this topic too long, but this is the one thing that kind of, threw me off with the Justin Fields slander. And it kind of reminds me a lot of the Justin Herbert slander in last year's draft. Justin Herbert was getting a lot of the same slander. He has accuracy issues. He doesn't process the field well. Tua's better than him. Joe Burrow's better than him. All of these things. And then Herbert comes out last year and lights it up. He's 6'6". He has a cannon for an arm. Accuracy wasn't a problem. Processing wasn't a problem. He has the athleticism to move the pocket, to escape the pocket when he needs to. And he became Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, not saying that Justin Fields will have the same process and be Offensive Rookie of the Year, but based off of everything that he was able to do, based off of the way that he played, based off of the way that he competed against Trevor Lawrence, he beat Trevor Lawrence at every level. In his one-on-one matchups with Trevor Lawrence, He stepped up to the plate and he beat him at every level. So I don't understand the Justin Fields slander. I really don't get it.
Yeah, I think year one, I think the quarterbacks who are going to produce the most or have the best chance to produce is Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. When I say I don't think he's going to be the franchise guy, I'm not sure if I see him, being a 15-year quarterback, if that makes sense. I think he can have success. I think he can be an average starter. Is he going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league ever? I don't think so. He certainly has that potential. He has a lot of traits where he can get there. But in this draft, I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Trey Lance. I know Trey Lance has a lot of slander, because of where he played and stuff like that. But I like Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, and then Justin Fields would be my quarterback 3.
Well, I'll dig into it a little bit later. But is it bad that I want Jimmy G to get hurt so that I can see Trey Lance earlier? Like, is that bad? Like, I don't want to wish that on anybody. Like, this is your living. This is what you do for a living. You love to play the game. But it's like, listen, tweak your ankle like you did last year and just sit out for 7 to 8 weeks and just let the kid come in so I can see what he can do. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. CB, what you got, man? Back to the NFC East.
All right, man. So we'll go up the I-95, a couple exits, check out the New York Giants. They were pretty clearly eyeballing our boy Devontae Smith. So we went ahead and jumped him. Thank you, Derek Jones, for that one. And I think that threw them for a loop because they moved back down to 20 and they took Kadarius Toney. Now, Kadarius Toney, you hear a lot of fantasy talking heads and guys that scout the rookie saying that he's not, not that he's not that good, but they don't see him as, pro level. And listen, I'm not the biggest college scout of guys. I'm really just started getting into that the last couple of years. But from what I've seen on Toney, he's pretty explosive. I mean, you watch tape on Kyle Pitts, you'll see him doing, you'll see Toney on the field doing some nice things too. I think he's more talented than he gets credit for. Like I like him where he's going in fantasy, rookie drafts. He's going early second, mid second. And when you look at this class, I mean, once you get past the top 7, 8, I mean, so if you can get Toney middle second, I like it. I'll take him at that level. And, he's not going to have a ton of impact, but at least year one, I don't think, just because it's such a crowded room. Like, that's why I didn't give them a great grade on the draft, because, I mean, look at the Giants. What don't they need? I mean, they've got a room with Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton and, oft injured but capable tight end in Ingram. They brought in Kyle Rudolph. Saquon Barkley can catch passes out of the backfield as good as anyone in the league. So you look at a bad defense, you look at a not that good offensive line, and they take a wide receiver with their top pick. So it just doesn't really add up. I think because of that, Toney is going to end up being a value in your rookie draft because people know that he's not really going to have a huge impact right away. But you can't overlook first-round draft capital. I mean, he's at 20th overall, and there's something to say about that. So they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed. It just might be a little while. Like, he might be on your taxi squad for a year before he's in your roster. After him, they went with linebacker Azeez Ojulari. Hopefully I didn't kill that one, but he's a solid player. That was a better pick than Toney to me, because they can use all the help on defense they can get. So that was a solid move. And then the only other thing I really put down for those guys is Gary Brightwell, super late, like pick 196 he went. I mean, that dude's going to be free in your rookie drafts. If you got big benches, taxi squad, maybe stash him. But, I mean, they got Saquon. They got, Devontae Booker they brought in. They paid solid backup money for. So, barring some major injury, Brightwell's just, worth monitoring. But I'm not really targeting him or looking to add him right away in my dynasty leagues. So I gave them a C-. I think they did the worst in the NFC East. A low Girari pick, that's the best one. That could help them. I like that kid. His tape looks nice. He could help them out right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, and if it wasn't for injury concerns, Ojulari would have went in the first round. He was getting first round
Right.
comps and first round grades the entire draft process and didn't slip until the very, very end when some of those injury concerns came out. So they really got a first round talent to fall to them in the second round. I after speaking to Giant fans, I understand the Kadarius Toney pick. I mean, if you were going to go with Devontae, Smith at 11, then getting another capable wide receiver for your offense, that kind of makes sense. But I do agree with you. I think that pick should have been focused on the offensive line. You got to keep Daniel Jones upright. If you want to see what he can do and if he can really take his game to the next level, part of that is being able to take your game to the next level. You can't do that, if you're, running from pass rushers and always ending up on your back. If you don't have a clean pocket to throw from to hit all of these weapons that you've given him, then what good does that do? And I think they also added John Ross. So that wide receiver room is definitely crowded. There's a lot going on there. I do think Toney is dynamic. He's very explosive. He's great after the catch. He loves contact. You hear this word in football a lot. Kadarius Toney is a dog. He's going to come in with that mentality, and he might, change that room and bring a level of swagger and attitude that I don't think they have right now. So that could be, looked at as a positive for them. Okay, going to my third team in the NFC West, that'll be the Arizona Cardinals. I'm upset because I really like what they did at every level of this draft. First round pick, they add Zaven Collins, college defensive player of the year, which upset me because now you put Zaven Collins next to Isaiah Simmons, and now their linebacker group is crazy. And then in the second round, like they needed more wide receiver help,
This is my boy.
they add Rondell Moore. And on draft night, when I heard his name come across the board, I just had to put my head in my hands, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And I think Andy Isabella and Christian Kirk, they both looking over their shoulders because while they have speed, they don't have this kid's speed. They don't have this kid's athleticism. They don't have this kid's ability to bounce off of tackles and to make 1, 2, 3 guys miss and take it to the house. They don't have his route running ability. They don't have his hands. So I think those two guys are definitely looking over their shoulder. We talked about, crowded wide receiver rooms, and they're 4 deep. They got D-Hop. They added AJ Green, Isabella, and Christian Kirk, like I said. But I honestly think day one, Rondell Moore can come in and supplant those two guys and be third on the depth chart. And you got Hopkins and Green on the outside with Rondell Moore in the slot. And I'm like, all right, now I have to deal with this twice a year. So that kind of made me mad. Then they get Marco Wilson, corner out of Florida. I like that pick too. Then they get Victor Dimukeji out of Duke. I like that too. Then they get Tay Gowan, corner out of UCF. I really like that one. They add James Wiggins out of safety out of Cincinnati. Really like that one. And then they get Michael Manet from Penn State. I think at every level, the Cardinals dominated this draft. They attacked areas of need. They added depth pieces. They added guys who can contribute right away. I gave them an A as far as the draft. Like, they really did their thing with this draft. They got a better grade than my 49ers did. And I just, had to keep it real and give them, what their flowers and what they deserve. As far as fantasy impact, I think the only 2 offensive players that they got were Rondell Moore and center Michael Manet. As far as what we can see on defense, let me plug my laptop in so the stream doesn't go off. As far as defense, again, we talked about defenses, and I think while they added some solid defensive pieces, I don't think this turns them into a top 5, top 10 defense. This may be a good defense to use against a poor offensive team, as you mentioned earlier, CB. Or, if your starting defense is on a bye week, this may be a good defense to pick up in that sense. But I think with the way Cliff Kingsbury likes to run offense, and with the maturation of Kyler Murray, I think Rondale Moore should be somebody that's targeted in that late first round, early second round in rookie drafts. I think he is going to add a dimension that Cliff Kingsbury is looking for. I don't think he was able to do it fully. I think you saw bits and pieces of it, or at least I saw bits and pieces of it, watching them twice a year, saw what Christian Kirk and what Andy Isabella were able to do. But like I said, I think Rondale Moore can take that to a whole nother level from that slot position. I think Cliff Kingsbury is like a kid in a candy store when he saw him on the board and he took him, and he's scheming up so many different ways to use him in the offense. I think he is going to pay big dividends for someone's fantasy team. Now, again, they have DeAndre Hopkins. We already know he's getting the bulk of the targets. AJ Green is a reliable veteran, but we have to worry about injuries with him. But I think Rondale Moore could be a solid pickup in somebody's fantasy draft this year.
If you like tackle football, I don't care if it's for fantasy, you just like watching football and good football players, Rondale Moore's highlight reel from Purdue is disgusting. It is absolutely one of the filthiest highlight reels you will ever see. My man is little, but he is stocky. People bounce off of him trying to tackle him. People have the angle on him, and you think they're going to tackle him, but he burns them. This kid, if he wasn't 5'8", we'd be talking about him like he was Jamar Chase. He's got a little bit of injury history, but I love me some Rondale Moore. I have the Superflex team that I just took as a complete tear-down rebuild. It had like next to no assets. I traded Tyler Boyd to get the pick, got me Rondale Moore, and I would have given him $5 extra for it because I got nothing but hype and hope for this kid.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be something special, and I think he's with the right offensive mind and the right offense to where we know that the coverage is going to be focused on Hopkins. We know that. So that's going to give him a lot of one-on-one matchups for him to do some damage. So I think we could see a lot from Rondale Moore. Okay, I think we're on our fourth team in each division. And then, like I said, I'll briefly, touch over the NFC South. Sorry, we couldn't get our man in here with some technical difficulties. But all right, Mr. 305, last team in your division.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Lions.
All right.
I gave him an A- in this draft. I think obviously Penei Sewell from Oregon, people were saying he was the best player in the draft overall. Kyle Pitts, whoever you want to take a coin flip, you're going to get one of the best players in the draft. And they recently just got Jared Goff, so give him some protection. DeAndre Swift's going to need some running room. I really like DeAndre Swift. I know they brought in Jamal Williams, but DeAndre Swift I'm buying in all my leagues for sure. And then they went out, addressed the defensive line, the Washington defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I'll take it.
I really like the signings there. They went out in the fourth round. They picked up the USC wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who everyone's talking about in fantasy. He's going to step in day one, contribute. A lot of people are saying he's the most NFL-ready wide receiver, or one of the most, not the most. That's Jamar Chase. But, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is an interesting pick. He's going – I've been seeing him go late second round, mid-second round in my rookie drafts. He's definitely a player I like. I think he has a lot of potential in that offense. You look at the wide receiver room in Detroit, and who do they have? They have Brashad Perryman, Quintez Cephas, Tyrell Williams. I mean, are those guys who are that good? I think there's some potential there, but I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a lot more upside than those guys, and I think he's going to come in day one and contribute. They did end off the draft in the seventh round with the Oregon State running back Jamar Jefferson, who a lot of people really liked as a sleeper running back in this class. He has good size. He had great production at Oregon State. But he's sitting behind DeAndre Swift. He's sitting behind Jamal Williams. And I don't know if I'd be buying him in any of my leagues. I know some people think if DeAndre Swift goes down, Jamar Jefferson may have a chance. But, I mean, Jamal Williams showed in Green Bay that he's capable of taking, the place of an injured running back as well. So I would fade Jamar Jefferson if I was anyone. But overall, I mean, the Lions did great. They got the offensive lineman. They got a couple weapons on offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is better than his brother. I do think it's cool that he gets to play his brother twice a year when he faces Green Bay. Now, they're definitely two different body types. Equanimous St. Brown is like 6'5", 230, 235. Amon-Ra is only 6'1", maybe 200, 205. So they're definitely two different body types and two different types of receivers. But I think with, just his skill set, his ability to catch the ball, his speed, his route running, I definitely think he is better than his brother. And I think he does have an opportunity to at least challenge for that number 2 role and maybe even that number 1 role. Like you said, the guys that you mentioned, they aren't stars in any way. They're not going to command a lot of attention. So if he can come in and build rapport with Jared Goff early, that could be, beneficial for him and for the Lions as well. All right, Castle Black. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory.
Yes, sir. So I save boys for last because, the piece of my heart right here. And they did what I wanted them to do in this draft. I knew once they had traded back initially and went to 12, Smith might be a stretch. My boy Devontae, the Slim Reaper, is the coolest fantasy nickname or just football nickname you could ask for. The Slim Reaper, man, that is so dope. He, everybody knows him. He set the world on fire last year. He put up one of the most amazing statistical college seasons ever. He won the freaking Heisman Trophy as a receiver, man. It doesn't happen. When was the last time that happened? I don't even remember. It's a long, long time, though. Dude is a gamer. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to get open. He knows how to not get hit. He knows how to get his quarterback out of trouble. He can block even for a tiny little guy. Like, he is a football player, man. And I am so hyped they traded up to get him. It was very clear, at least in the local media, that they had 4 targets once they traded back. It was the 2 corners, Horn and Surtain Jr., and it was Smith. The areas of need, and they did what they had to do once the other 3 went off the board. They made the trade up. They didn't overpay. They gave up 86 overall and picked 12 to move up and get a beast. Now, the knock on him, he's 166 pounds at 6 feet tall. That's very skinny. The nickname fits, the Slim Reaper, man. They ain't call him that because he's chubby. But he came out himself and he said, listen, we're not bodybuilders, we're football players. And watch his tape. That kid doesn't know how to play football. He is going to be awesome, in my opinion. And I'm so glad they got him. I mean, Chad Ochocinco, Marvin Harrison, these dudes came in at similar frames, heights, and weights and, lit the NFL on fire. So I'm not worried about it. I mean, it is a concern somewhat, but I love it, man. I absolutely love it. It was the biggest area of need. He's immediately a fantasy impact player. He's the number 1 receiver on the team. I like him in redraft even. Love him as a top 4 to 6 pick in your rookie drafts. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. Love him. I mean, that may be being a homer, but just watch a little Devontae Smith tape, man. The kid is a otherworldly football player. It just happens to be in a really small frame. Other than him, because I could talk about him for the rest of the show, they went and got the center from Alabama, Dickerson, with pick 37. Certainly an area of need. Their offensive line is getting older. Jason Kelsey, one of my favorite Eagles of all time, is, maybe got a year left. So it makes sense. Dickerson has injury history, though. That concerns me a little bit. So I don't think that was a smash pick with the second round. But, I don't think it was a bad pick either. And then the only other one I'll really bring up is Kenny Gainwell. Interesting, especially given the lack of running backs in this class. I mean, if you look at rookie drafts, Gainwell's going mid-second, early second for running back needy teams because there ain't much there. You got the big 3, then you got Carter, then you got Gainwell. I mean, it's messy. He, to me, isn't really much of a threat to Sanders. He's too small. He's an excellent pass catcher. He's going to eat some of the targets off of Miles Sanders. I think it does downgrade Sanders. That and all the other running backs they brought in Kerryon. They brought in Jordan Howard again. I mean, it's not pretty for Miles Sanders right now. He's a hold in your dynasty leagues, but Kenny Gainwell's interesting. I mean, he's worth a grab. I don't like him where he's going, but he could and should have some fantasy impact. And he's an electric player, man. He's just small to be he's not Miles Sanders' handcuff, is what I think a few people are looking at him as, and I don't think you should spend on him like that. But I'll take a gamble on him if he falls to mid to later second, because you can watch his tape too, man. He's a gamer. I think he's more of a gadget guy, at least to start. So I gave them a B-, mainly on the Smith pick, just because it was such a smash home run in my opinion. But the rest of the draft wasn't that great. They didn't really address corner until the 4th round. I think Zach McPherson, is that his last name? I apologize. I didn't write it down.
Nope, you got it right.
He's all right. He was, I don't know, 8th or 9th corner off the board or something like that, though. So they didn't really address the position that well. Like, they needed help there. So they could have done better with their other picks. But man, I'm already ordering my Slim Reaper jersey, man. You know it. I might buy the Alabama one too.
Now, quick question for you. Do you see Landon Dickerson, sitting on the bench and, sitting behind a guy like Jason Kelce until he retires? Or do you see them moving him to, either one of the guard spots? Because to me, if you're not going to move him to one of the guard spots and get him playing time early and then transition him to center once Jason Kelce does, decide to retire, then I feel like that was a wasted pick in the 2nd round, where you could, address the center position either later on in this draft or even maybe, next year, with another potential top center talent. What are your thoughts on that?
There really hasn't been too much buzz, at least local media wise, about what their plans for Dickerson are. The new coach Sirianni was asked about it, and he kind of just glossed over it. He's a weird dude. He's the oddest interview you'll ever see. I mean, I don't even want to call him dumb or anything, but like he's a different kind of guy. Like, he just starts talking about stuff that had nothing to do with the question he was asked. So they're not leading on too much what their plans for Dickerson are. I think it makes perfect sense to get him involved in the interior line, just to get him, into the league. Obviously, Kelce being older, he could potentially miss time, and I think he immediately steps in as the center. But you're right. If they plan to just redshirt him, it was a stupid thing, straight up. So my B- was basically just about Devontae. So I could see it, if it works out, he ends up being our next center for 8 to 10 years. Awesome. But they could have went a lot of other places with that 2nd round pick if they plan to redshirt him.
Got it. We got a question from my man Amin the Dream. This kid is awesome, man. First met him through Grant Cohn, who's a 49ers beat writer on the West Coast. He always has good insight, always asks really great questions. I got to get him on the show one time, man, because, he drives conversation sometimes. But he has a question for you. He says, Castle Black, what are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts? And will he be successful in Philly? And it's funny that, he brings this up, because another one of my questions for you was in, the same vein as this, as it pertains to Jalen Hurts, but also as it pertains to Jalen Hurts' success, and then how that translates to Devontae Smith and his fantasy value. I think obviously, the wide receivers don't throw passes to themselves. The quarterback has to get them the ball. So how successful do you think Jalen Hurts can be? And then, will his success or his failure obviously dictate Devontae Smith's fantasy value?
Now, I mean, if any wide receiver could throw himself a pass, it would be Devontae Smith. So let me put that there. But seriously, I mean, it's such a small sample size you saw from Hurts. But if you look at just his passing numbers from last year, they're historically bad, like horribly inaccurate, like just it's not good, man. He had some monster games for your fantasy team. That's what, we who love fantasy so much look at first. But in real life, I have high hopes for Jalen. And I think, an off season where they showed confidence in him and didn't draft somebody and they're giving him the shot is only going to be good for him mentally. And I just really hope they can coach him up and he can continue to improve. But if I don't see a big improvement from him in the passing game, I still think he's going to be a top shelf fantasy asset with the running, but I don't know. I can't say, man. I'm hopeful, but I'm very, keeping my guard up because I don't think this kid's going to step in and just immediately bring us to, leaders in the division or anything like that. Now, for fantasy, buy him up, man. He's got the job. I don't think they're benching him for Flacco this year. So he's got the gig. He can run. He can easily put up 1,000-yard rushing season if he stays healthy. And we all see what that does for Lamar Jackson. I mean, even if the passing numbers aren't great, he can still be a top 10, top 8, top 5 fantasy guy just on that. But as far as it impacting the receivers, I think just on target and volume alone, Smith's going to be an impact guy. We saw next to nothing out of Rager last year to really know what he is. So it's hazy, man. I wish I could give you a more definitive answer, a more confident answer, but it's just such a small sample size from him, and I didn't really like what I saw in the passing game. So I'm optimistic, but I'm I'm hesitant to fall in love with him.
Now, last question, because this is something I was thinking about, and you can let me know if I'm on the right track or not. But the Eagles going after Nick Sirianni. And eventually signing him as the head coach. My thought process was, you go after, a Frank Reich understudy who can kind of bring in similar concepts that Frank Reich ran in order to do what? Patch up the relationship with Carson Wentz. You bring in a guy like, Nick Sirianni. He's a disciple of Frank Reich. Bring in some of Frank's concepts that Nick has learned, kind of help Carson get back to that MVP type caliber season that he had under Frank Reich. But then you do all of that only to trade Carson Wentz and take that awful cap hit. So now, do you think that, Nick Sirianni, with his limited experience as, a head coach and as a coordinator, can really get the best out of a quarterback, let's just call it a project type quarterback in Jalen Hurts?
I don't think so. I think it was the talk around town is that it was a bad hire and that it was almost forced by the owner, that the owner, Jeff Lurie, kind of got his hand in the honey pot and really forced these moves. And Sirianni, he was an afterthought. He was nobody even interviewed the guy. And I think he might be trying to be cute and bring back the glory from him hiring Andy Reid as an unknown all those years ago and thinking, hey, he's smarter than the rest of the league. And he found this guy. And I honestly think he just saw Frank Reich. He saw the success that Frank Reich helped us get to our one and only Super Bowl and was like, yeah, let's just bring in his little disciple. But Sirianni, man, I don't know. He's lovable. I'll give him that with these weird interviews talking about he did paper, rock, scissors with players on Zoom calls instead of interviewing them. And he's out there, but he seems to really love the game. So my hope is that these players see him more like a bro and just want to play hard for him and just they see his love of football, because that does bleed through in his interviews. The dude just loves football. He's a son of a coach. He's been on the football field carrying water bottles since he was 3 years old. You hear the passion when you see him talk. So my hope is that's infectious, and they don't have high expectations, so they really just go out there and just do what they do best and play football. And I as a fan, I always got nothing but hope and feeling yeah, this is the year, but I don't know, man. It doesn't look great. The rest of the league didn't want to even interview this dude. What are the odds that he's a great hire? That's really the best way I can say it.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't, figure things out until after week 2.
It probably gonna take longer than that.
All right, last team for the NFC West. I'm gonna do like Castle Black, and I'm gonna save my best for last, which is my San Francisco 49ers. Love what we did. I did give us a B. I think, we could have did a little bit more to attack the wide receiver position. I think the 49ers want to get veterans for that spot instead of younger guys. Definitely the talk is on the table that we might be, in the running to acquire Julio Jones. I will not say no to that trade. If we can somehow make that happen, I don't care if it's Trey Lance or Jimmy G throwing them the ball, get number 11 in the red and gold. But we go Trey Lance. We traded up from 12 to 3. We got the quarterback of the future. We talked about it earlier with the Trey Lance slander. And I'll be honest, I was one of those guys at the beginning of the draft process that didn't think highly of Trey Lance until I put the tape on and really got to study who he was as a quarterback. And then I got to see how he was working during, this draft process to get himself prepared to be in the NFL, listening to his story, not getting offers from any of the Power 5 conferences. And if he did, he got offered as a linebacker, a running back, or wide receiver. He bet on himself, went to North Dakota State and said, I wanted to play quarterback. His numbers at North Dakota State were better than Carson Wentz coming out of college. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. He's got a rocket for an arm. He is accurate. He's got great footwork. He can, has the athleticism to escape the pocket. I love the pick. I think with the next couple of picks, Kyle Shanahan is really trying to change the makeup of his offense and the players that he's had. A lot of the players in the past have been, smaller and on the lighter side as far as weight. This year, Kyle Shanahan wanted to beef up every aspect of the offense. So we get a big, burly quarterback. We get a big, burly offensive guard in Aaron Banks. With our first third-round pick, we get a big, burly running back in Trey Sermon, 6'1", 215, bigger than any back that we have on the roster currently. Until we drafted him, I think Sermon's going to figure in a lot in this offense. I love the Ambry Thomas pick. We add another guard, Jalen Moore. I love the Talanoa Hufanga pick, safety out of USC. I love the Elijah Mitchell pick. And we also got another corner out of Oregon, Diamador Lenore, who has even gotten praise from Deion Sanders in rookie minicamp, saying that he should be arrested for assault with how bad he beat the wide receiver in one-on-one drills. I mean, pressed him into the ground and then intercepted the ball, made the guy look really, really bad. All in all, I give this draft a B+, I believe. I think we could have attacked wide receiver earlier, but like I said, we're probably going to go veterans than young guys in that area. As far as fantasy impact, we talked about Trey Lance starting. If Jimmy gets another high ankle sprain or, something happened to his collarbone or, something happened to, his index finger on his throwing hand, listen, just sit on the sideline, Jimmy, get well, take as much.
Just sit there and be pretty,
just take the helmet off, let the jaw line sit out, do like this with your hair a few times and run your fingers through it, just do that for us. And take as much time as you need on the sidelines and let Trey Lance get in there. But I want, honestly, for the longevity of his career and, sustained, winning and success for our team, I want Trey Lance to get in when he's absolutely ready. I think the biggest fantasy impact is going to be Trey Sermon. Yes, we have other running backs. We have Raheem Mostert there, who is going to be our starter. But Kyle Shanahan is known for switching that up. When we had Tevin Coleman, sometimes Tevin Coleman would start the game off. So it would never always be Raheem Mostert. It would be based on Kyle's scheme for that particular game against whatever defense that he's facing. So if he's facing, a smaller defense, a defense that, doesn't have a lot of size to him, and he can kind of pound them into the ground and wear them out early on with Trey Sermon, I think you can see him a lot early figured into that offense. Kyle loves to run the ball, and then he loves to use, play action off of that. So he's going to set up the run in order to open up that play action. And Trey Sermon offers you the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. I think right now he may be our best pass catching back that we have outside of Kyle Juszczyk, who's a fullback. So that offers value when you talk about PPR leagues and things of that nature. So I love what we did. Give us a B+. Didn't want to be too much of a homer. And I think Trey Sermon is a guy that you want to target early on in those rookie drafts. Fellas, that's it. I wanted to kind of stay around an hour. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. Briefly, let me just kind of run over the NFC South. I don't want to leave anybody out. So I'll start with the Carolina Panthers quickly. And then if you guys know anything, if you looked into this, you can chime in as well. I think if I'm looking at the Carolina Panthers, two guys who I see right away, Terrace Marshall Jr. Now, obviously, Carolina already has two high-quality wide receivers in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So Terrace Marshall is coming in as the third receiver in that depth chart. But I think with the way that they want to play offense there, I think he figures in to see a lot of carries. And one of my favorite running backs in the draft, I'm not mad with the 49ers taking Trey Sermon, but if we could have got this guy, I would have been happy with this too. I love Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. Obviously, he's behind Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey has suffered a lot of injuries in the recent years. So if he does go down, with another injury, an ankle tweak, hamstring, here or there, I think Chuba Hubbard is more than capable of being his backup and coming in and providing you quality snaps. Again, another solid pass catcher out of the backfield. I'm just going to skip over the New Orleans Saints. I hated their draft.
Yep.
I hated every bit of their draft. My father-in-law is a Saints.
Book?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Come on.
He's not going to add anything in fantasy. And I don't know why you waste a 4th-round pick on Ian Book when you already have two quarterbacks that you're basically going into camp with a quarterback battle. You already know,
backup.
Right. You already have a starter in the backup. Why waste a 4th-round pick on Ian Book?
And Ian Book is, to me, I don't see it at all.
Nope.
Nothing.
I don't see it. I don't see him as a starter. I don't see him as a backup. I don't even see him as being a journeyman. I don't see him being a guy that can float around the league for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, bouncing from team to team, being a quality backup. I don't see him being like a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Chase Daniel or somebody like that. I think, he's right around that NFL average, 3 years, and then he's gone. And then the only other offensive pick that they had was Landon Young, offensive tackle. That draft was horrible. No fantasy implications there.
Yep.
We'll move right along. Let's see. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they took Kyle Trask in the 2nd round. 305. You can speak to this, I think, with dynasty leagues. What's the value right now for Kyle Trask in dynasty leagues?
I really like Trask for dynasty leagues. He comes in. Tom Brady has 2 years left, barring any injury. He's going to have 2 years to learn behind the greatest quarterback of all time. And assuming they keep a lot of the core offensive players there, that he's still going to have Godwin if he gets a chance to start after 2 years. Antonio Brown will probably be gone. Mike Evans will be aging. But, Ronald Jones might still be there. They have a lot of good offensive talent that Kyle Trask could come into a good situation. And as far as rookie drafts go, I would take him. If I was quarterback needy, I would go 4th round. But 5th round, he might even go undrafted in some leagues because of the situation he's in. He's definitely behind Tom Brady for 2 years. But I like Trask. I like his upside. He performed well at Florida. He has a limited sample size. But I think when you look at his size, his athleticism, I would take a pick on him.
Cool. And then I think the only other option that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have is a guy like Jalen Darden. Now, I don't think he's going to supplant Scotty Miller. I think Scotty Miller has built a good rapport with Tom Brady. But Jalen Darden is one of those guys who offers speed. So, I think he's valuable in that aspect, but we all know that the targets are going to go to those first 4 guys. So there's not much fantasy impact there with Jalen Darden, but definitely take the advice of Mr. 305 and try to snag Kyle Trask in your dynasty league if you can. And then moving over to the Falcons, we all know, I think it was mentioned earlier, Kyle Pitts, you can flip a coin with whether he was the best player in the draft, whether it was Trevor Lawrence, whether it was Penei Sewell. Kyle Pitts is, day one starter. And especially if the Falcons are serious about moving on from Julio Jones. Yes, they have Calvin Ridley, but I don't think that offense misses a beat. You still have 2 top targets. Kyle Pitts is a mismatch nightmare anywhere you put him on the field. You can line him up outside on the left or the right. You can line him up at tight end, inline tight end. You can line him up in the slot. It doesn't matter where you put him. You have to know where he is at all times. And even when you know where he is at all times, he can still embarrass you. So we all know that he's going to do well. And I would not sleep on Frank Darby, 6th-round pick, 187, wide receiver out of Arizona State. I think even if you keep Julio, obviously he would be a 4th option behind Julio, Ridley, and Kyle Pitts. But now if they trade Julio Jones, I think it obviously moves him up from 4th in that rotation to 3rd. And I think, he adds, viable option as a 3rd target in that offense. So he can, provide you some solid catches in a rotational aspect. Wouldn't get him early. I would try to get him late if possible. But Kyle Pitts and Frank Darby are the 2 key fantasy weapons from the Atlanta Falcons draft. And that's going to do it for us tonight here at FantasyHolics. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. Again, give us a follow on all of our social media accounts. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. We are posting content every day to be interactive with all of you FantasyHolics out there, getting your insight, getting your opinion on different position battles, different player outcomes for the season. So this is where you can tune in with us. This is where you can participate and be an active member of this community. This is where you can get all of your fantasy knowledge, skill, and expertise and strategy in order to dominate your fantasy leagues. Now, you're not going to beat us because we're putting in all the work behind the scenes. We're giving you the information. But, there's a few things that we keep in the tuck amongst ourselves because we want to win too. But, if you're not in the league with us, then you'll dominate that league. So that's where you tune in with us. That's where you'll be able to, be a part of a great community, be interactive with us, and get all of that knowledge. Fellas, any last thoughts before we get out of here for tonight?
I mean, I was just going to say when you were talking about Kyle Pitts, man, Kyle Pitts is so good. He made Kyle Trask a 2nd-round draft pick. Just saying. Kyle Trask probably isn't a 2nd-round draft pick if he's not throwing to Philadelphia's own, by the way, Kyle Pitts, Archbishop Wood, Philadelphia, PA, baby. Kyle Pitts, the Millennium Falcon. I heard that nickname while going to football. That's dope because he was born in the year 2000. I'll take that. That's second to the Slim Reaper. Not as cool as Slim Reaper, but Millennium Falcon is number 2.
That's number 2. Listen, he made Kyle Trask a 2nd-round pick, and like you said, when you throw on that Kyle Pitts tape, you saw a lot of Kadarius Toney, so he made him a 1st-round pick also. So Kyle Pitts that's how good he is. Where other players around him benefited from his greatness. Last thoughts, Mr. 305, before we get out of here, man.
No last thoughts for me. All I gotta say is go Dolphins. We're definitely making the playoffs this year, and we're gonna win the AFC East. Excuse me.
You ain't winning the NFC East. I can guarantee that.
I think the Buffalo Bills will have something to say about that, but I think the Dolphins put themselves in a good position to make a run for that division for sure. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the NFC version of Draft Recap and Fantasy Implications. We're going to be putting some other things together behind the scenes, and we will bring you another live version like this for the AFC conference. So connect with us on all of our social medias so that you get notified when that is happening, and you can join us for that live podcast as well. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Peace, guys.